and welcome to Cover Story. Joining us is former Union Minister and Congress MP from Anandpur Sahib, Manish Tewari. He's also one of the most vocal and articulate faces of the Congress. Good to have you back, Manish, for a conversation. It's been a long while, actually, since we last spoke.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, Priya. It's always a pleasure to have a conversation with you. Thank you very much for having me on your show again.
Actually, I was chasing you for a while to talk to you about the Congress, but there's a lot other stuff that I do want to talk to you also about, especially our reaction to the Queen's funeral and the whole colonial legacy, or plus what's happening with China. But first, the Congress, Manish, because I've been chasing you for a while on that story. We now have Rahul Gandhi going for his Bharat Jodo Yatra. We also have the presidential elections that are now been slated finally. So what is your take on what is happening within the Congress? Are you a little satisfied with the way things are going now?
Well, first of all, I think that the Bharat Jodo Yatra is a very good endeavor. Shri Rahul Gandhi and those 100-odd people who have decided to walk from Kanyakumari to Kashmir are actually pilgrims who are making steady progress. And I think their objective is laudable. It is something which every right thinking Indian should support. So therefore, insofar as the yatra is concerned, I think it will make good progress, and obviously it is early days as yet, but I do wish it well. Insofar as the presidential elections are concerned, well, the presidential elections are supposed to be the culmination of a process whereby elections are held at every level in order to rejuvenate the party. Some of us had concerns with regard to the electoral roll for the election of the Congress president. And the reason for those concerns were not any personal aspiration. It was a principle that whenever you have an electoral process, it should not only be transparent, but it should also look to be transparent. So therefore, under those circumstances, there are certain certain announcements which have been made by the chairperson of the Central Election Authority. And so therefore, we'll wait and see as to how this process unfolds.
But you voiced apprehensions about the process, that it is not as transparent as it should be regarding electoral rolls. So has Shashi Tharoor also, raised issues. And also, is the G23 planning to contest? Because your whole idea was to have an election at the end of the day.
Well, insofar as a contest is concerned, you see, in any case, the G23 or what is left of it now, because some of the leading lights have already decided to go their own different ways. Other people have taken some other course of action. But the entire effort was an effort to try and reform, rejuvenate, and revitalize. As I pointed out, or I've been pointing out ad nauseum since the August of 2020, it was not about any personal aspiration, or it is not as if certain people had come together to challenge the leadership. So, insofar as contesting or not contesting elections are concerned, those are really individual decisions. And I do believe that those people who would be interested in going down that road must be having their own consultations. But as I said, the nominations only open on the 24th of September and they continue till the 30th of September. There has been a tradition in the Congress that, except for 2000 when Shri Jitendra Prasad fought against Mrs. Sonia Gandhi, or when Mr. Sharad Pawar and Rajesh Pilot fought against Mr. Sitaram Kesari in 1997, there has been a tradition of consensus insofar as the selection/election of the Congress president is concerned. So I think we'll have to wait and see as to how this process unfolds.
Your comments recently caused a lot of heartburn within the Congress when you said, decisions are taken by security guards and people who have really no stakes in decision making. I had people calling up asking, does he mean Jairam Ramesh? Does he mean Randeep Surjewala? Or is he talking about Pawan Khera? There was a whole lot of speculation as to who you were
No, I
targeting.
didn't say that. I didn't say that. I think there is some confusion. I guess that was what ostensibly Mr. Ghulam Nabi Azad had written in his letter. All I had said is कि जब मंत्रियों के चपरासी ज्ञान बांटना शुरू करते हैं फिर बहुत ही हास्यास्पद परिस्थिति पैदा हो जाती
How
है.
is that better than what Azad
So I
said?
think, therefore, I think everybody in the Congress understands the real underlying anguish is that people who have spent a lifetime in the service of the Congress party. Now, if they leave the party, or if in their estimation they're compelled to leave the party, it is very easy to rubbish them. And, non-entities and nobodies, kind of rubbish them and say that anybody who wants to go should go. But then the question arises that why did you invest 50 years or 40 years in that particular gentleman? And rather than introspecting, even if, let us suppose, somebody who's been with you uh, as on your staff for a certain number of years, if he or she also wants to leave, you make that extra effort to reach out and try and allay their apprehensions, their misgivings, and try and keep them on board, because after all, over a period of time, they become a part of the family. And so when somebody who has sufficient seniority in the party, he or she resigns either from a particular position within the party or decides to leave the party, or for that matter, if you have a situation whereby what happened in Goa yesterday, I think it's a cause of introspection as to why this is happening, rather than have non-entities, people who have hardly any contribution in the Congress party, rubbish them and say that whosoever wants to go, we don't care. And for every one person ready to leave, there are 20 willing to come in. This is an extremely supercilious and an arrogant attitude, which completely and absolutely is alien to the culture of humility, which should really characterize the functioning of any political party.
Manish, last question before I know I didn't call you to talk about the Congress, but having you here, I'll just one more question is that, jisko jana hai jaye is a line taken by Rahul Gandhi. If his staff around him, who I agree with you, they're not, most of them are not Congress members or forget leaders, are echoing it, they are echoing what Rahul Gandhi says.
Well, in my very humble estimation, I think even if a small worker uh, wants to leave the Congress party for whatever reasons, we should make an effort to retain him. After all, when somebody joins the party and grows in the party, not only does he or she give time, but the party also invests in them. Yes, if somebody has some overriding personal aspiration which they feel that it cannot be fulfilled here, that's a different matter. But by and by, it's always been my philosophy, and I headed two mass organizations of the Indian National Congress, the NSUI and the Youth Congress. At least I would always make that effort to try and retain people, because it is very, very easy to sever a trained human resource. I think the trick, or the more difficult part of it, is trying to retain them. Until and of course, certain people have this view that all these chaps who've spent 30, 40 years, if they are compelled to all go away, then there will be more space for us. But in that process of making that space, they need to also introspect, what have they done to the party?
Fair enough, but their point is that we asked Jitin Prasad to stay back, and Scindia was one of the people asked to make him stay back. Then Scindia left, and then Jitin Prasad has been cursing him that you left while making me stay back, and then Jitin also left. So all the people that they asked to stay back don't really stay back; they just go negotiate better deals.
Well, I do not know about what happened with Mr. Jyotiraditya Scindia or Mr. Jitin Prasad, they would be in a better position to answer. But having said that, I recall when I was not in Parliament from 2014 to 2019, Mr. Jyotiraditya Scindia was the leading light of the opposition benches. I mean, he was everywhere and all over the place. And so, therefore, the moment he lost an election in 2019, if he decided to hitch his saddles and leave, I think somebody should have really spoken to him and asked him that if there is an apprehension or a grievance, and they should have tried to sort it out and resolve it. Because, as I said, it's a very cavalier attitude to take. That we don't care, whosoever wants to go should go. For every one chap goes there, 20 flocking or knocking on the door. But that one chap who is going is somebody who's actually spent 20, 30 years and you've invested in him. And if he or she has become a leader, in addition to whatever inherent intrinsic qualities that he or she may have had, the party has also made an investment in it. So therefore, that is an investment that you lose out. And I don't think that there is any other way of looking at it.
I would tend to agree with you, actually, Manish. Moving on from one last question is: supposing Ashok Gehlot becomes the party chief, his name comes up for candidature. Would you have an objection to his name?
Well, politics is the preponderance of probabilities, and I said that there is no point in putting the cart before the horse. Over the next 15 days, this process is going to play itself out. So let's wait and see as to what really comes out of this entire process. And I think eventually, whosoever is interested in looking at this process seriously, much less participating in it, must have that ultimate objective in mind, that whatever I or whatever he or she does, is it only to satiate a personal aspiration? Is it only to become that 17-day bubble and get some publicity across the country? Or would his or her participation actually have the effect of strengthening the Congress party, which is the objective of these elections? And as I said, that we've had two models, we've had elections, we have had this consensus model, which has been operating over the centuries, over quite a period of time. So let's just wait and see as to how this pans out. And I think these 15 days would be interesting.
Very interesting, and hopefully we'll get some more interviews from you. But now moving on, Manish, to the Queen's funeral, and how India is handling the legacy of the past. We've declared a day of national mourning, but before that, we also have the Prime Minister give that famous speech from Kartavya Path, where he, disowned everything of the past as legacy of the colonial Raj. So how do you see India handling it? We have two diverse voices within India also.
Well, I think we've handled our relationship with Great Britain, who was our colonial master, rather well over the past 7 decades. We could have very easily, given the atrocities which the British had perpetrated between 1857, especially 1857 and 1947, very easily we could have said that we'll have nothing to do with Great Britain or United Kingdom after independence, and especially the horrendous manner in which they tore this country asunder with the partition. And that is what the British have really done in every part of the world from where they have retreated as a colonial empire. But we were mature, we were sagacious, and we did not opt out of the Commonwealth. And so, on balance, I think we've handled our relationship with Great Britain, notwithstanding the bitterness which India is, or India necessarily must have, especially the Bengal famine of 1943. And you can recount various such historical milestones. But we've kind of put that bitterness aside, and we have taken a very equanimous view of the relationship.
I will take a break and come back and talk to you a bit more on this, but after a quick break. Hello and welcome back to a cover story conversation. We're talking to Manish Tewari, former Union Minister and Congress leader. Manish, before the break, in fact, we talked about the Congress Raj and then about the British Raj, but more on what's happening, in terms of our reaction. You said we handled it well, but how do you see what the Prime Minister and what the BJP is doing by renaming everything? Kartavya Path here, there. Does everything need to be renamed? Because everything is not, the legacy has to be seen also not in gray areas and not just black and white.
Well, that was a very interesting juxtaposition, British Raj and Congress Raj. But I think the Congress Raj made that break from the British Raj in very clear terms because the Congress Raj actually came out of a 8-decade-long struggle against imperialism and colonialism. And fortunately or unfortunately, not many people in the current political firmament can lay claim to that legacy, that they had any role to play in the independence and the liberation of India. So therefore, if there was a Congress Raj which succeeded the British Raj, it was primarily because the Congress was the principal instrument, or it was the national movement which ultimately brought about the emancipation, liberation, and independence of this country. Now, coming to this renaming bit, frankly, Priya, this is a bit of a joke, because this is not the first time it has happened. You've had cities being renamed. So, Bombay was renamed as Mumbai, Madras as Chennai, Bangalore as Bangalore, Calcutta as Kolkata, Trivandrum as Thiruvananthapuram, and you can
But
go on.
Connaught Place as Rajiv Gandhi Chowk and
That's right. That's
airport
right.
as Indira Gandhi Airport.
Even today, in colloquial language, when you are going to those paths, what do you say? I'm going to Connaught Place, right? Yeah. Okay. Or for that matter, Curzon Road has been Kasturba Gandhi Marg now for a very long time. But a lot of old timers or people even of our generation, still have the colloquial Curzon Road on their lips. So therefore, these are basically whims and fancies of rulers. They sort of try and satiate their own ego, that they are leaving their own imprimatur on the sands of time. But eventually, in real life or in the daily life of people, it really has no impact at all. So you can rename all you may. 10 years down the line, if you talk to somebody, he would say, well, I went to Rajpath for an ice cream. And, you've renamed Racecourse Road as Lok Kalyan Marg. But people still say, ki Gadi Racecourse se le lena. So eventually, I don't think that beyond, satiating your own ego and thinking that you've left that indelible stamp on the sands of time, which also, I guess, was a large part of the Lutyens makeover that you are seeing. There's nothing really beyond this.
But it is the whole need to put his, the BJP imprint in India on the stands of time. But you talked about whims and fancies of rulers. Your take on the Ukraine-Russia war? Ukraine seems to have made some advances. They've beaten Russia back from the south side, at least.
Well,
What do you see?
in the Lok Sabha, when I had led the debate in March, I had said, and I still maintain it, that whichever way the cookie may crumble, this is not going to end well for Russia or for the mandarins in the Kremlin. And it seems to be going in that direction because what Russia has been able to achieve is the exact opposite of what they set out to do. They were apprehensive about the NATO creep eastwards. And essentially, you've not seen a more united, unified Europe, a more reinvigorated NATO, a better transatlantic alliance, now almost going back 3 decades. This kind of unity wasn't even there when America decided to go into Afghanistan and into Iraq later. So eventually, a war between the Anglo-Saxons or between the Slavic people have united the Anglo-Saxons on the other side. The real concern that I have is that the Indian Foreign Office, especially Minister Jaishankar, has been very much in the face of the Europeans, right, when they've asked for help. So if the war actually ends badly for Russia, which it currently seems to be, because if this is an inflection point, given the fact that Ukraine has gained about 3,500 kilometers of territory, then possibly there will be a lot of people laughing in European capitals and maybe a lot of red faces in South Bloc.
Well, we already, we have that issue anyways with the Biden administration also, which is not, we've had that rocky start off with them. But today, as we speak, is the morning of the SCO summit, where Prime Minister Modi is slated to meet Vladimir Putin at a bilateral also. Uh, is that, I mean, your take on what you
Well,
think?
the fact is that this SCO provides an excellent platform for leaders of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization to actually prevail on President Putin to roll back his aggression of Ukraine, because India has a relationship with Russia and its predecessor state USSR, which goes back a long time. In fact, China and Russia signed those principles for a new global order on the 4th of February 2022, before the Russian aggression commenced 20 days later. And there are other people in that room, or will be in that room, with whom Russia has had this historical relationship. So I think if there is an opportunity for all of them to collectively prevail upon President Putin to end this unnecessary misadventure, which I think has cost Russia also a hell of a lot, not only in terms of logistics, equipment, and hard cash, but also in terms of human lives. Then I think this is an opportunity where the SCO can play an important role.
But do you think India should have nuanced its position better instead of, tilting more towards Russia's side? That's what your answer seems to indicate, your earlier answer.
Well, I guess it's about dependencies. So, therefore, when you had a situation in Eastern Ladakh where you were fully mobilized on the Sino Indian border, you really did not have very many choices, because you are still dependent to a very large extent on Russian spares in order to run your war machine. So, therefore, it is our imperatives rather than any kind of great international position, which really dictated the choices that we've made. And for that matter, that is not something to be ashamed of, because every country, makes these choices depending upon their own imperatives and necessities.
Regarding China also, do you think this, do you believe it when they say the hostilities have ceased, or there seem to be some kind of melting of hostilities?
You see, what really concerns me is that India has not been able to figure out, as hasn't much of the world, the changed China after the Xi presidency in 2012. And it's been 10 years from there. What is of exceeding concern is the repeated Chinese assertion that we do not recognize the pre April 2020 status quo. This essentially means that China is going back on every agreement that it has signed with India with regard to the border, whether it was the 1993 agreement, the 1996 agreement, or the 2013 agreement signed between Dr. Manmohan Singh and President Xi Jinping in the October of 2013, after the Depsang transgressions in the March of 2013, just before the Chinese premier, and he was newly appointed then, was actually on his first maiden visit abroad, and he had chosen India as the destination of that visit. So this reneging on all these commitments, notwithstanding the two summits in Wuhan and in Mamlapuram, that is something which is of increasing concern. And even, there is a lot of opacity about these disengagements. Ultimately, those buffer zones which are being created, those buffer zones, essentially, as I understand, are between the current Indian positions and the patrolling points, which we used to access before these transgressions took place. So essentially, if you look at it, at least perceptionally, these buffer zones, rather than being in the Chinese claim line or in the areas claimed by China as its border, are really in the realm of where India used to used to think its borders extended till. And so essentially, I would not say that it is loss of territory, but the fact is that you are not able to patrol up to where you were patrolling till April 2020.
That itself is a loss,
Well, you see, that's now these are certain legacies of the past which needed to be settled. The British tried to settle the western border or the eastern border with the Durand Line, the Chinese western border, in 1913. In fact, the British tried earlier in 1898 and even before that, to settle the Sky Chain and the northern border also. And I think even now, given the fact that both China and India have a great role to play not only in Asia, it would be in the interest of both of us to see as to how this confrontation can be put out of the way. And these unnecessary irritants actually do not impede the progress of the two most populous nations in this world.
Interest of India, but not the interest of China. China seems to be driving some advantage out of this.
Yeah, it's in the interest of China also because the Chinese economy is not doing too well. And the fundamental compact between the Chinese Communist Party and the people of China is that if you deliver growth, well being, and a standard of living, then your totalitarianism is acceptable. And that compact seems to be breaking. China's economy is not growing at more than 3 or 4%. They have an aging population. Over and above that, they are hugely leveraged. They have a debt to GDP ratio of 300%. So therefore, China is also, almost on the tip of a precipice, and it would. I think it is today more in the interest of China than in the interest of India to settle these unnecessary irritants that they have created, whether on the Sino-Indian border or in the South China Sea or in the East China Sea or the Sea of Japan, because eventually geography dictates that you can't change your neighbors. So it's better to live in harmony with them, rather than in a constant state of conflict.
Thank you so much, Manish Tewari. As always, been a very insightful conversation, and we thank you for this.
Thank you very much, Priya. Thank you very much for having me.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.